Top Gun.
Hey guys, welcome to That Pedal Show VCQ. It is Monday morning, the 14th of January. Dan here.
Mick here, hello, and we are very grateful to be in the company of Reeve the Bakers.
Yes.
In Devizes in Wiltshire.
Very beautiful town.
Yeah. And we're using the labs for the first time because there's a nice big aircon unit there and an oven baking lovely pastries, which you should come and try.
Right, so what happened last week, Mick, of note?
We played our first ever proper TPS gig. We've done some stuff as a band. Yeah, it was cool. We've done some stuff as a band.
Come on, man. It was beyond cool.
It was very cool.
It was awesome.
We didn't promote it because we weren't quite sure how it was going to go, and it wasn't like an official thing. It was just something that we needed to do to get the band rolling. So we stuck an Instagram post out in the morning, and lo and behold, it was packed, which was really cool. So thank you to everyone who came out because it really made the night.
Yeah, it was awesome, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, another 200 gigs, I think we'll be there.
Yeah, definitely. Lots of people said lots of very nice things. Paul Griffin, Mark Moyle, Joe Leonard, Andy Scrittol said 8th gig on Thursday, fellas. Great mix of songs. Black Hole Sun was an inspired choice. You both can actually sing. Looks like you were getting quite into that two-handed tapping thing, Mick.
There's a bit of two-handed tapping. Dan and Doug wanted to do Tribute by Tenacious D. So as it comes out of the breakdown, there's a bit of ridiculous tapping, which, you know, if anyone's going to play ridiculous tapping, it's
absolutely.
Me. Yeah.
Humbucker said, if the next TPS video isn't your show from Thursday, I'm going to cry. And Aaron Booth asks, can your band name be Associated Tangents?
I think that's
genius, isn't it?
It's a fantastic suggestion.
The TPS band and Associated Tangents.
Yeah, I think it should be proper prog. It should be the TPS band in brackets Associated Tangents.
Perfect. All right, done deal.
We're not going to film shows, I don't think, because the amount of production involved in filming it. I mean, maybe we'll get some clips, but if you think all that effort we go to in the studio to try and make stuff sound good, transferring that to a live environment, I mean, it would just sound like 4 blokes at a pub gig, which is kind of what it is, but you really need to be in the room.
Yes.
Otherwise, you can spend 10 grand on live production, and then all I'd be worried about is the production and not playing the guitar. So
to make it sound great,
yeah, we're away off that.
To fly you all out to the gig.
Yeah, you may be aware that most live gigs are fixed
post-production
to win within an inch of their lives.
Yep.
Most live shows, anyway. Blah blah blah.
One thing we did mention on last week's VCQ, where Mick was debating whether or not we should just become a review channel, and the resounding feeling from everyone out there is no.
Thank you. It was very gratifying to hear
really,
that, actually, because
really
I think I was definitely feeling a bit of the post-New Year blues last week, and or New Year blues.
Yeah, I was there. I was right there with you, actually.
And I think that was coming across in some of my reactions to things. So apologies for that, but hey. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
We ride the roller coaster.
We do, up and down, baby.
Yeah.
Right. Still a few people. Before we get to the Uni-Vibe sounds video from last week.
Yep.
There's still a few people confused about the whole dotted 8 thing that we did on the delay video a couple of weeks back.
Because you did
I did the tappy thing on the leg.
You did the tappy thing on the leg, but your head was doing the dotted 8, wasn't it?
Well, it was. So what was happening was. Right, the dotted 8 thing is an 8th note and half an 8th note again, which is a 16th note. So an 8th note plus a 16th note is 3 16th notes. So the dotted 8th is a group of 3 16th notes together. Now, the easiest way to think about it, I find, so here's what I did. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, so that's quarter note, right? Then 8th note, 1, 2, 3, 4. 16th note, 1, 2, and then what I did was 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? There's a group of 3 16th notes.
So you're counting triplets within the...
You're counting groups of 3
right.
of 16th notes.
I don't understand.
The easiest thing to do, Faith by George Michael.
Yeah.
Jink, 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 ka-jink, jink. The Bo Diddley thing. Jink, it's exactly the same thing. It's 3 groups of the 16th notes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Ba, 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 a ba, ba. So tap, ba, ba, ba. There's your dotted 8th. Okay, that's it.
Okay.
All right,
No doubt.
Clears that up. That's what a dotted 8th is. It's not an opinion. It's what it is. Fact. Done deal.
I want to see a
End
comment.
of.
I want to see a comment this long explaining why you're wrong. Incidentally, if you've never watched the George Michael documentary that he made just before he died,
What's it on? Is it on Netflix?
I believe it's on Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah, or I might have recorded it on the BBC over Christmas. But wow, what an amazing guy! I just always assumed he was some vacuous pop star.
All right.
But watch it. Watch the George Michael documentary. It's really brilliant. He was brilliant.
I just remember him on Richard and Judy, where he came on, and they had this cash giveaway, and Marcus said, "Well, whatever you give away in cash, I'll match it." And he did. He ended up giving someone 10 grand.
Wow.
I mean, it's such a in the industry he was known as so generous and lovely. But
he was the biggest selling artist in the world at one point.
Really?
Yeah, at a time when people actually sold records.
Wow.
Right, let's get into it then.
Okay, so great Uni-Vibe sounds. Now, there was some confusion. Frank Fusilier, Tom Hallis, and
Tim Hallis.
Sorry, Tim Hallis and Tom
Tauscher.
Tom Tashar. Then Max109 says, "Hey guys, great show as always. I love how you revisited vibes again. One question I've had is how does the vibrato mode of a Uni-Vibe compare to the vibrato in a Boss VB2 or the vibrato you get from a chorus pedal with a mix knob?" Okay. The answer is a little bit complex, but I'll make it as simple as possible. A standard vibrato moves the pitch of all the frequencies all together, right? So it basically, do you remember that thing I showed you with the delay knob, how it moved the time up and down? That's what the vibrato does. It delays the whole signal, so the pitch of everything goes up and down. The vibrato in a vibe pedal, we have a frequency-dependent phase delays, right? So the shift is more at some frequencies than others.
So does the vibrato mode in a Uni-Vibe sound different from a VB2 then?
Completely.
Does it?
Yeah.
I've never tried it.
Because the VB2, you're moving the pitch, the whole signal up and down.
Yeah.
In a vibe pedal, the pitch is being moved in some frequencies more than others. It's pitch dependent. It's frequency dependent.
I've never understood why you would use a vibe on the vibrato setting, because the vibe sound is the chorus
it's
setting.
because you can. I don't know why you can easily switch off the mix signal.
Yeah.
And it's another modulation sound that was available for at the flick of a switch.
Sure.
So, but they are different.
Okay, so they do sound different. Corey Clark. Hello, Corey. Corey says, I picked up a Vibe machine after hearing Andy's on this show. No regrets here, and glad you guys got yours to sound better, because we struggled with it, didn't we?
We did. Originally we struggled with it, but then we started tweaking the little pots and the whole thing just went, ha-ha.
And here's both ends of the tweakability, because I always moan when pedals have got loads of little trimmers and stuff on, because I don't have the brain space, the time, or the inclination to do any of that. I just want the manufacturer to go, this is how it sounds best, turn it on and you'll love it. However, I think most people are probably the other way. Most people are obsessive tinkerers and tweakers and really want to get in there and do that. Especially if you're
two camps.
If you're a fan of that sound, because you want to just get it right for you.
Yeah.
And certainly with the Vibe machine, we were able to dial it in areas which we felt the others were perhaps lacking.
Now what? It says, I realised this was a video on Vibe pedals, but I can't help feeling that the mini vent was the real winner here.
Quite a few people said that.
And quite a few people said that. Lots of love for that mini vent. So one of the things at the gig the other night, whenever you kick that thing on, I mean, your tone was superb, but whenever you kick that thing on, it just elevates and just sounds so amazing.
I'll give a little honk to Greg Koch, actually. Greg Koch. Who he was the first person I saw using the mini vent too.
Yeah, where were we? In Denmark.
Yeah, and I vowed on that day by the gods of Mordor or whatever. I don't know. Trying to think of a Greg Koch-ism.
By the great Sasquatch of tone.
Yeah, I would buy one, and I did. So thanks, Greg. Yeah, it's such a great pedal.
It's amazing.
Such a great pedal.
Amazing.
Mark M, Tim Schipper, Dominic von Riedman.
Nice.
Tim Schipper and Dominic von Riedman sound like they should be in business together. Schipper and Riedman.
Schipper and Riedman.
Yeah. Want the vibe settings of the Boss MD500 we used. We just went onto the classic vibe setting in it and tweaked from there. And Yeah, you
things
can
in
change
there.
all sorts of stuff.
Yeah,
But we
it's
only
amazing.
changed, I believe, the only thing we changed was the speed of it
Right.
and the mix level. We didn't change anything else,
Okay.
from what I remember.
Tim Lee, would you guys be down to do a video on impulse responses? That's one area that I feel isn't explored nearly enough in discussion about guitar gear. Theoretically, yes. The thing is, we don't use impulse responses, so we don't know that much about it. It's something that we need to explore. One of the things about us going out and doing these gigs is there are things that because we've been doing it for so long, and there are things that we understand about how getting a good guitar in that situation works, thus the whole show's sort of based around the knowledge that we have. But the impulse response thing is new to us. Saying that though, I am really interested in trying some stuff. I'm doing a bit of writing and things at home, and I've got I've got a great the amps and everything at home, and I want to see how I can, as opposed to using the built-in guitar cabinets and things. I want to actually use the amplifiers and the sounds that I'm used to, and have an experiment with it. So I'm definitely up for having a play, but it might take, just be patient with us on that, because there's a learning curve. Guys like Pete Thorne, I should say guys like Pete Thorne, he knows an amazing amount about impulse responses. Rabea, they've done some great shows on it.
Yeah.
So certainly worth checking that out.
For me, the depth of knowledge is similar to having owned and played many classic amps over many years.
Sure.
Your knowledge of them becomes a little bit implicit, and it becomes experience based rather than knowledge based.
Yes.
And those are two very different things. Now, I will say that whenever so let's say I need to someone phones me up and says, I just need a little bit of guitar to stick over this, or like doing stupid stuff like if someone has a video short for the beginning of their NAMM clips or something like that, and they just want a bit of guitar to go over that. I won't bother miking a guitar up. I'll just go straight in direct using a preamp. I'll plug in something through Logic, filter the EQs to sound something like a speaker.
Okay.
And it gets, because there's nothing required from me in terms of inspiration in playing. I don't need any interaction with the thing I'm doing. So I'm not poo-pooing IRs, because they are utterly amazing.
They are.
But I'm saying going down the rabbit hole of IRs is a bit. If you watch tomorrow the Trem show, when I replace the block, the bridge in the Strat is going up.
Oh, brilliant.
What I conclude in that is that all I've done here is just run down a rabbit hole for like 1% improvement.
Sure.
And I think, or maybe 6% improvement, maybe even as much as 10. But you spend hours and hours and hours and hours doing it, and actually, if you'd spent that many hours just playing, practicing, recording, so all I'll say about IRs is you can get buried in that stuff.
Yeah.
And actually, just one great IR that works, that you then further tweak with EQ and with compression and all the other things that get mutually mutilated in the recording process. Anyway, maybe. Okay, sounds like there's a show there, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Once our knowledge increases, or should I say our experience increases.
Very good. So the Crowster was back in action last week. Nathan Wayman, Magnus Goldbranson, Jason H, and Matthew Collins all commented. Matthew Collis Long said, "Am I the only one wondering about the back pickup in the Crowster? Sounds excellent. Love to hear more P90 action." So I was struggling with the bridge pickup in the Crowster. The neck pickup is absolutely divine. Because I use Telecasters and bright guitars, even my Les Paul is a very bright sounding Les Paul, and I need, if I'm swapping guitars around, I need to be able to swap any guitar around and it work in the rig. So it was what I was finding was the bridge pickup was really dark. Like it was a high output dark bridge pickup.
Does it feel compressed to you as well, the P90 in that guitar?
It does.
Because, sorry to interrupt, but I will share that experience with you in that I find that even when I pick up the Junior, the Collings, the 290 DCS, it's exactly the same with the Strat. Even though it's a more powerful guitar, it's got much throatier mid-range.
Yeah.
And when you sit there and play it normally, it sounds bright and sometimes it sounds really brash. Actually, plugged in at volume, there's a compression on it that loses attack compared to the single coil.
Right.
Really weird thing to explain.
Yeah.
And is that what's happening with the Huber?
It is. So I put in a humbucker size P90 in there, and I really liked it. I thought, okay, this is it. This is my twin P90 guitar, because I love the Huber.
Yeah.
It sounds wonderful. It has, for a new guitar, best neck I've ever, me personally, ever played in the guitar. Beautiful. But I'm just trying to get the right. Now I know that I really love the P90 sound. It's now a mission to find the right humbucker size P90 for the guitar.
Yeah, more Vent 2 love from Jean Dupros, Pan Damask. Got some exotics today. Darren Arms, Toby Thompson, and Tony Steele. Ah, crap. Now I have to buy a Mini Vent 2 immediately. Damn you guys. Sorry about that.
We get that a little bit, don't we?
Yeah. Okay, Zachary Femling. There are so many videos with jamming on guitars and gear, etc. But Mick's jam at the start of this video was the best I've ever heard. Bless you, Zachary. Thank you very much. Something about the sound he was using along with the feel. Dan said it best. I felt that on my spine. Thank you. That's very kind. And sometimes it happens.
Yeah. One of the things about the live thing, like being in the room with you when you're doing the intro, and it's transportative. It really is. When you get that sound that you connect with, I think when you finished doing that, I said, "Thank you guys. Have a great day." Because literally, that's everything you need to know about vibes happened in the first 30 seconds of that video. It's just the sound that you connect with. Boy, oh boy.
It's very kind of you to say. I think it's in all of us, and it's the difference between having a sound that inspires you and one that doesn't. And I promise you, it's in every single one of us.
Yeah.
And that's why it's worth going down the rabbit hole sometimes and just finding the thing you like and not being ashamed of the thing you like. I made a conscious decision in the previous few months to just stop trying to go down all these avenues that are not me and just focus on the thing that I love, because I think when you do that and you know, for people who are proper artists, for people who are in the game of inspiring people and touching people with art without getting too whatever about it.
Yep.
The practical point here is removing the middleman from what you feel and what comes out.
Luke Cloutier mentioned when we were talking about the Doppler effect with the Leslie cabinets. And Luke Cloutier says, Doppler effect, not to be confused with the Doppler effect, the tendency for stupid ideas to sound smart the faster that they are coming at you.
I think we're guilty of that, aren't we?
Thank you, Luke. That is genius.
Stuart Talmadge. Stuart Talmadge. Fellas, I'm not sure what's happening to me, but I'm actually beginning to understand Dan's technical explanations. Curious. But he is curious about how does Vibe interact with delay?
So first thing, Stuart, I'd probably call your local physician and go and have some tests immediately. How does Vibe interact with delay? But yeah, you can have delay. I have delay after Vibe without any issues. It's different to trem in that the way that the tremolo works with the rising and falling of the whole signal. When you delay that sound, then you get rising and falling, delayed. And
you might miss the first.
Exactly.
You might miss your first bit of your note if it happens to be in the bottom of the tremolo wave.
Exactly. Whereas if you put the delay into the trem, then you can have this massive, thick delay sound, but you've got this constant rising and falling of the amplitude of the signal. With Vibe, because it's a change in tonality as opposed to a change in amplitude, then delay after Vibe works great. But try it,
because there's always an element of the dry signal.
Absolutely.
So therefore, it doesn't drop out completely as a tremolo would.
Yeah, it depends how much of that. If you think about the way that the stages in a Vibe works, it depends how much of that. As soon as you get to that 180 degree phase cancellation, depends how much of that signal is being cancelled out. For example, not a vibe, but if we talk about a flanger that has a zero through flanger that basically takes everything out. Now, if you were delaying that, I mean, still be a cool sound. I think it's just about experimentation. Just have a play. I certainly
try it before and after and see what you think.
Yeah.
It's more likely that it's going to become after, because I think it seems from the feedback from the show, more people are running their vibes before their overdrives, and more people run their delays after their overdrives. So it's more likely that it's going to come after.
Yeah. Gemma Seymour, hi Gemma. Gemma had her 50th birthday recently and commented,
really?
Yeah, so happy birthday, happy 50th, Gemma. I hope it was awesome. Gemma says, I really love the sound and the idea of vibe and rotary, but somehow it always seems like someone else's music, not mine. I love this comment.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Yeah. And it just goes back to what you're saying before. If it's something that you connect with, great. If it's not necessarily something that you connect with, brilliant. But I love that you've identified that, maybe it's something else that it is your thing. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I would say that harmonizers are that for me.
Right.
I have no... It depends how they use them, isn't it? Because if I step on a vibe, I'm instantly going to be playing Jimmy type stuff,
sure,
or Trower type stuff. But actually, a vibe set super subtle, just as a modulation effect. I don't know, over a chorus or a bridge section, or maybe like if you're layering stuff you're recording and you've got a single note passage which is call and answer to the melody, or something like to the main vocal, or something like that. Perhaps it's because they're so keenly associated with a small handful of famous people, you might miss where they're used more subtly by many more people.
Yeah, absolutely, because it as soon as you hear that, it evokes that character.
Yeah.
But Gemma's question was really interesting. She said, have you ever seen a pedal or other effect that has shifted phase by less than 180 degrees, such that it would just never sound in phase if used in a multi-amplifier rig, even if you had a phase reverser? So it's a... that comes down to the amount of delay. Now, if you delay something by less than a full cycle, interestingly, there are some digital effects, I'll get that, there are some digital effects that, because you're going through the processor and you have a thing called latency, it's the amount of time it takes for the chip to process, do all its job, and then spit the audio back out. And so that can often be delayed. Well, if it's not an analog drive-through, that direct signal always has a short delay on it, which is if you have two amplifiers and one has always got that digital through signal on it, it can be impossible to get that in phase.
Yeah, it's common practice, isn't it? If you're recording one digital thing that has latency and one analog thing which doesn't, to have to shift actually in the thing that you're recording in, shift the whole waveform back a bit.
Yeah.
Interestingly, doing the audio for the Vibes thing was a phase nightmare.
Oh, really?
We miraculously shifted phase on one of the amps partway through the video.
Right.
Literally no idea why.
Okay.
I heard it immediately, so I had to flip it back in the door.
Right.
And then there was a couple of instances, certainly when using the 3 amps, where I was like, that's not quite fully in. And you can see phase, right? So if you're looking in your recording software and you've got 2 tracks of guitar running, you can just stretch it out to its highest, longest, most magnified length, make the waveforms a bit bigger, and you can see where they go up and down. And we were slightly off.
Right.
Not enough to reverse it.
Right.
But just slightly off in one of the amps. So phase is not right or wrong, is it? It's more in or more out.
Yeah.
More is the most common thing, I would say.
Sure.
It's maddeningly confusing. And of course that's what creates all those cool sounds.
Yeah.
When you step on the Mini Vent 2, it's messing about with the phase all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I don't know if that's any clearer, but hopefully,
I was interested.
yeah, phase is really interesting.
Snip, snap, doggo. I like this.
Snip, snap, doggo.
Snip, snap, doggo. I just have one question concerning the harmonic trem and vibe. Both are lovely effects, and you nailed it with the similar but different comment. But pedals that offer those things can be quite pricey. How close could someone get with a phaser and a standard trem, like a Trelicopter and a Script Phase 90, for example? And any tips on how you would order that? I used to do that.
Right.
Not with a phaser and a trem, but with what did I do? I used to use a chorus
Okay.
and a trem to get a kind of almost sort of somewhere in between a vibe and a rotary speaker, and I think you can get away with it. You can. It's not the same thing.
No.
What do you think?
Yeah. Well, it's not, because it's the relation. So if we're talking about a harmonic trem, separate your treble frequencies and your bass frequencies, but you have this crossover point in the middle. Here's a treble, hello. Here's a bass, hello. And in the middle, you have Dan's miraculous 1.2 to 1.5 mid hump, right? That just pierces through everything. And as the treble goes up and the bass goes down, there's this crossover point in the middle. But because one of the signals is out of phase with the other one, you have this phase relationship with these frequencies in the middle, and that's what gives you the sound of like a phaser.
Right.
But the thing about this is the relationship between the top end frequencies here and the bottom end frequencies. They're always doing this, so you won't be able to get that effect with a tremolo and a phaser.
Yeah.
Because you're not separating those frequencies. However, tremolo and phaser on together, really cool sound.
Yeah, if you want it to sound roughly wobbly, and kind of sort of do the job, especially in a live performance, where it's just wobbling a bit. And, and I mean, I used to use my chorus for that.
Sure.
High depth, high rate, and that would give you a sort of kind of rotating speaker.
I used to use my chorus for exactly the same thing.
And it's not really until you hear a proper rotating speaker simulator, or indeed a real rotating speaker, that you realise how far off it is.
Yep.
But the brain is a very sophisticated device. It fills in information that's not there.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's a great point. So it's one thing for me to do all my finger puppets, but it's another thing to interpret the way that we hear what's going on there.
Yeah, your brain's really brilliant at doing that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Tobias A wants to know, okay, what is the difference tone-wise between a 20-watt tube amplifier and a 60-watt tube amplifier attenuated down to 20 watts? Of course, I'm speaking of otherwise it's the exact same models. I know there should be differences in tone because of the output transformer and all that, but how does it affect it? My real question, why get a 20-watt amp when the 60-watt amp could do theoretically all that and even more? Thank you guys for doing such an amazing show. Interesting question.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm trying to think of two amps that exist in 20-watt and 60-watt form that are exactly the same. But let's be a bit more real world about it. Let's say, let's take a deluxe reverb.
Yes.
Reissue, 22 watts, 6v6 power valves. One of the most popular amps on the planet, used since the mid-60s, a very well-loved amp. So the deluxe reverb, blackface deluxe reverb. Then let's take something that's ostensibly similar, so say a twin. Let's go all the way up to a twin with 4 6L6s, 85 watts or thereabouts. So what Tobias is asking is if you attenuate, or indeed if the twin had a power attenuation switch in it,
to take it down to 20 watts,
would it sound like the deluxe?
Right.
And the answer is no.
No.
Because different power valves, smaller transformer, different speakers, different cabinet.
Yep.
And what happens in a small amp when you push it is many of those components, the power transformer particularly, is spec'd to deal with that level of power. And there is a sweet spot, in my opinion, that happens when certain components are running at their kind of cool point.
Yes.
Which is why a lot of big amps turn down to sound cold. because the speakers aren't moving, the transformer's not really doing its job, and nothing's really flowing like it should. Doesn't mean it sounds bad, just means it's not the same.
Yeah, absolutely. There was someone had given me points on an analogy, and I'm so sorry. I will find out who you were and say thank you next week. But the analogy was, imagine that all of these different elements are different colors, right? And then you mix these colors together. What you get is if you change one of those elements, you have a different color, and then you mix those together and you get a different outcome.
Yeah.
I love that. It's really,
all I get
really
when
good.
I mix colours is like a crappy brown colour.
Yeah, it's always crap brown. But if you also think of the way that the amps are designed, they are designed for all those elements to work together.
Yeah. It's really rare to find. I mean, some amps do it really nicely, their attenuation settings, but if you want a big amp, get a big amp. If you love a small amp, get a small amp. If you need to use a small amp occasionally, but you only have a big amp, then sure, attenuate.
Yep.
But, yeah. Philip Ellis. Hello, Philip. Just tuned in. Does it get mentioned somewhere that the new Uni-Vibe is expected at NAMM? That's interesting.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, okay, so that's good. A couple of cool things might be coming from NAMM. Are coming from NAMM. The new Strymon Magnetic Echo.
Yes,
which
that
looks
awesome.
Looks good. Can't wait to hear that. Two Rock are basically doing a steel string singing 150 watt.
Are they?
It's called. I can't remember what it's called, but I'm like runs big power tubes, 150 watts.
Awesome.
Insane clean thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, Tom Freeson says, hi Dan and Mick, great video, well timed. I've just taken my first step into Vibe world, having bought a JHS Unicorn, which sounds ace. Does the bulb control both speed and density? Intensity, sorry. I'm assuming the brightness affects the depth of the effects, but I could be wrong. And does the bulb ever break? So yes, if you think about the original Uni-Vibe, it didn't have true bypass. And what they did was...
How did they cope?
Right, so when they turned it off, all it did was turned off the bulb and it stopped basically all of the signal. None of the signals went through the resistors, all the signal went through the capacitors. I'm talking last week about having the capacitor and the variable resistor in parallel, joined at the end. So basically the bulb turned off, nothing went through the resistor, everything goes through the capacitor, and that was basically your bypass sound.
So it sounded pretty bad, presumably.
It didn't sound like a completely bypass signal.
Yeah.
But for the guys who were using it at the time, it sounded okay.
Jimmy managed.
Just
about.
Yeah. So yes, the bulb does control that. The brighter the bulb is, the more signal is that through that resistor area. And that, so one of the signals being in phase and out of phase, and that's where that phase relationship between those two signals happens. So the brighter that is, the more intense, so that controls the intensity and the speed, and depth and things. The other thing is about the bulb, the more likely the transistors that are driving the bulb, they're working really hard. But those sorts of things, yeah.
Are they going to break?
The transistors that drive the bulb and the transistors that drive the LFO, they're the two most common things in Uni-Vibes to break because they're under a lot of stress. But it's electronic gear. It's all, I've played Uni-Vibes that are completely original, however many years on, and everything's working fine.
Yeah, I've never had one. Had one break.
It's not. I have loads of light bulbs that go at the moment. I don't know if it's
in the house.
Yeah, and I remember years and years ago when the standard light bulb was normal, and they would go, but not that often.
Yeah.
Now,
even the modern ones.
Yeah.
Like the energy saving ones.
Oh, you mean the fluoro ones?
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't go. But it's the. Are
you still using incandescent light bulbs?
No, I would never do such a thing.
Oh right.
But if I were, they would go.
I don't trust this new tech. It just doesn't sound as good as a candle to me.
No.
Weeping Guitars. Is there a way to show Dan's explanation of vibe versus phase versus tremolo versus chorus, yada yada yada, graphically? show us an animation. We're going to try some graphics on Friday's show, which is going to be really properly explaining wet dry.
Awesome.
So let's see how we get on with that.
Yeah. I've done a whole thing. And what we'll also do is those graphics will be available via our Instagram account.
Hopefully.
So loads of people said, what? No Shanae Uni-Vibe, no JS Unicorn, the Mobius, the Kili Monterey, Earthquake of the Depths, the Effectro Tube Vibe, the TS Vicious Vibe, the MXR.
Why didn't we
have every vibe in the planet?
Ever mentioned, yeah. Because we don't own them all.
We don't, yeah. It's, you know.
Purple Haze 429, Purple Haze 429. I'm watching this in hospital, off my tits on morphine and various other drugs. I've decided it's the best way to listen to Uni-Vibe sounds. Purple Haze, bless you. We hope you're okay.
Yeah.
For whatever reason you're having to take morphine, we hope you're doing okay. But yeah, without doubt. Wasn't like Jimmy liked a. Jimmy might have liked a drug or two.
Yeah, he experimented from time to time.
Actually, I was watching I've watched 2 films this week on doping in cycling.
Wow.
And have you watched any of the Lance Armstrong stuff?
I've seen a bit of it, yeah.
You have to watch it. I had no idea it was quite as
endemic as it is.
Oh no, I knew it was endemic.
Right.
What I didn't realise is how organised it was and how sophisticated it was.
Yeah, right.
As a regime, you know. Anyway, what it occurred to me was, sports, entirely bad view of drugs. Music, we just wouldn't have any of the music we have if it wasn't for mind-bending drugs. Don't do drugs, kids.
Yeah,
I don't do drugs. But, where would we be without Hendrix, the Beatles?
On that note, have a fantastic day, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you
tomorrow. And on Friday.
Have a great week.
And next Monday. And on Tuesday. And on the next Friday.